Max Verstappen won't win the championship this season. I hope I'm wrong here. But the 2025 Formula 1 season has shown us every level the Dutch 4-time world champion has to offer. From the first race in Australia to the last one in Abu Dhabi, Max had us on the edge of our seats, feeling every emotion known to man. Let's go through the levels Verstappen went through this season with us as fans in the backseat. Max Verstappen won the 2024 championship, which made him a 4-time world champion back-to-back. We wanted him to become a 5-time world champion back-to-back, something that former Red Bull Racing champion Sebastian Vettel didn't manage. The 2023 season was a complete walkover for Max, winning 19 races, setting the record for 10 wins in a row along the way. Things were different in 2024. McLaren took a while to get going, but after race 8 they had the better package, and Verstappen had to fight Lando Norris hard to keep the lead that he had built. So the 2025 season started with new hope. The winter period was a great time for Red Bull to sort out the issues that had plagued the RB20. Verstappen also had a new teammate in Liam Lawson, because Sergio Perez struggled hard with the issues of the RB20, and despite a new juicy contract, he was let go. The RB21 was the first car built without the help of designer legend Adrian Newey. Pierre Waché and Enrico Balbo had to sort it out themselves. In 2024 they had already discovered what plagued their car, and it would take time to fix it, especially since there's a cost cap that prevents team from building 3 cars and seeing what works. The testing in Bahrain didn't look that hopeful, and the experts concluded that Red Bull had the 4th best car after McLaren, Mercedes and Ferrari. Still, Verstappen managed a P2 in Australia, so we had good hope that Red Bull would turn it around during the season in the development battle. China was a P4, and then on a wet track in Japan, Verstappen put the car on pole and won. We lived between hope and fear. Max Verstappen kept maximizing the next few races in the first half of the season, but often couldn't manage higher than a P6 to P4. He did score another win, but I'll discuss that later. See, the McLarens had the best package, and Norris and Piastri were swapping wins. While scoring 1-2s, it became clear that the constructors and the drivers' titles were going to be for McLaren. As hard as Red Bull tried, they kept struggling to get the car in the right window every race. Tracks like Miami and Monaco, where he won before, were P4 finishes, and Max and his fans started to despair. What if nothing changed this season? What if things get even worse when the other teams managed to outdevelop Red Bull? We also couldn't count on Verstappen getting any help from his teammate, as Liam Lawson was demoted after 2 races into the season, and Yuki Tsunoda was struggling almost as much as the New Zealander did. Something needed to change, or else Max was going to blow. Even his win in Imola, with the spicy overtake on Piastri, wasn't going to change that. His frustration became more and more clear, especially when there was a period where he didn't get a podium for 7 races. There was bad luck with the wrong setup in the wet in Silverstone, where they raced in the rain, and then there was a rain setup in Belgium, where they waited until it was dry. His races and racecraft were still solid, and he never gave up, but every race was another struggle of some kind. And it seems that if you're in that corner where you get hit after hit, the punches keep coming, and it pissed Verstappen off badly. So it was the Grand Prix in Barcelona, Spain, where Max Verstappen showed that side again that he gets hated for. His enemies were waiting for this day to come after not seeing it too often anymore. In a race where P3 was the maximum he could gain, trailing behind the McLarens, a late safety car allowed him to put on fresh tyres, something he asked for. The cars in front had fresh softs. To his surprise, they bolted fresh hards on. When the race got going again, he was slower than the cars behind him, which was to be expected. Verstappen drove in a straight line, and Charles Leclerc in his Ferrari tried to overtake him on the dirty side. He moved inwards to the clean part of the track and hit Max's car, and then overtook him. That was pretty dangerous at that speed and not fair. To make matters worse, in the following turn, George Russell made a move, to which Verstappen reacted by avoiding a crash by going off track and continuing the race. He was fuming by then, and then GP, his race engineer, came over the radio and told him to yield the position. He protested, but they told him it was the rules. It's really hard to know what went on in Verstappen's head at that time, but I like to think that he wanted to get some sort of revenge on Russell for forcing him off track by forcing him off track. So he slowed down, made space for Russell, and then made a move. That move made them bang wheels, and Verstappen continued in front. He did let him by later. I think Russell wasn't aware in time to jump out of the way. I'm a Dutch Max fan, and I'm not going to go all dramatic and say he used his car like a weapon and he should have been black flagged and more of that nonsense. Both drivers continued and Verstappen started to get better pace due to his tires warming up. The stewards looked at it, concluded that Verstappen caused a collision and gave him a 10-second penalty and 3 points on his license. So he had 11 points after that race. Verstappen told us not so long ago that the Spain race was his biggest mistake and something he regrets. I think it's fair play for him to admit that. His haters still want him banned. He will never escape those people, no matter how hard he tries. He got to a stage where he perhaps needed to escape the situation he was in. The time had come when everyone and their mother wondered if Oracle Red Bull Racing was still the right team for Max Verstappen. His name was mentioned in combination with other teams many times. Especially Toto Wolff was actively trying to woo Verstappen into the Mercedes camp, also because he missed out on Max in 2015. The rumours got bigger and bigger over the summer break, and Max's manager, Raymond Vermeulen, said things to the Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf, and he was talking to teams. It looked like Verstappen was ready to switch teams, despite him saying to the massive group of reporters every race that he wasn't focused on that. He only wanted to fix the car and this season. Then his boat was in Sicily and so was Toto Wolff's. It was a busy time for paparazzi reporters. They speculated on what escape clauses were built into his long contract with Red Bull, and it kept everyone busy. As it turns out, Verstappen confirmed he was staying with Red Bull in 2026, so it seemed all the noise was for nothing. However, in hindsight, I think internally Verstappen was using his seat as leverage to get things changed within Red Bull. We heard in the media later that season that Christian Horner didn't believe in the RB21 anymore and wanted to focus on the next car for 2026. The Verstappen camp, which wasn't great with Horner anymore, wanted to keep developing. My feeling is that this is what made the owners of Red Bull make the decision, amongst many other things, to sack Horner. Things have changed in modern F1. The end boss type of team principal days were over, and the days of tech nerd team bosses had started. This would change everything. Laurent Mekies took the job as team principal, and with that, the way they organized weekends changed. Where they used to do a lot of sim work to get the setup right during the weekend, they changed that approach by listening to the drivers first, based their initial setup on that, and then made changes during the weekend. The overall vibe in Red Bull changed, like a weight fell off their shoulders. Before, they always had the shadow of Christian Horner's past hanging over them. Horner made it his job to act like an aggressive pit bull all the time, and I do admire his determination. But it was getting old to see him have beef all the time. It wasn't good for the reputation of the team, and bad for the sponsors. Yes, the sponsors he brought in. He was very good at that. I'm sure he'll be back in F1. So, Max Verstappen was way happier with how things went, and it was visible in his results. A P2 in Zandvoort, an amazing win in Monza, another dominant win in Baku, and all of a sudden, things started to look much different. Even Singapore, which was a bogey track for Verstappen and Red Bull, got him a P2, and all thanks to the technical genius of Laurent Mekies and the faith he had in Max Verstappen's vision. With McLaren having their own issues with their drivers and the development of the car, we started slowly believing again. I have to admit that even I was getting a little delulu. When Verstappen won in Austin at the US Grand Prix, we were ready to get the orange clothes from the closet. Max Verstappen scored more points on his own since the summer break than the two McLaren drivers combined. If he kept this up, he'd win the title. And what a glorious title that would be. So far behind in the standings, fighting on his own, but clawing back the deficit. Even Max's haters forgot about their hatred and started supporting him. Also, because they hate McLaren more. With their stupid f***ing papaya rules. And their nonsense. Worldwide media, even in Britain, were singing his praises. And they all longed to see the title fight to the wire. I guess even they were delulu. But I love the enthusiasm. It's nice to see the haters converted into fans. To see my driver praised for everything I love about him. The races after Austin were races that he managed to win many times. So Mexico and Brazil were already counted as max wins. Mexico wasn't dubbed Mexico for nothing. And in Brazil last season, he fathered the whole grid from P17 in the rain. It was clear we hadn't accepted defeat yet, and the momentum was totally with Verstappen and his fans. However, soon we had to accept the facts. Mexico and Brazil didn't pan out the way we had hoped. It was Lando Norris who stole the momentum, and he won those races with ease. We were so used to seeing him make small and big mistakes that we almost counted him out. As it turned out, it was Oscar Piastri who had started bottling, and it was Norris who kept scoring the big points, even when he didn't win. Verstappen struggled to get the right setup in Mexico and managed a P3, which kept him in contention. In Brazil, he was knocked out of qualifying in Q1, the first time in 7 years or something. So he started from the pit lane with a new setup and a new engine, and he schooled the grid again by going from pit lane to P3. Everyone was in awe of that performance, even though we had to accept that the gap to Norris with 3 races to go was too big. 49 points means that Norris can DNF twice, and Verstappen needs to win to be ahead of Norris. The odds are too small, and we have to throw in the towel. Still, in this phase of acceptance, I can say that I'm really proud of Max Verstappen. He went through the ringer this season, but I have no doubt he'll be voted the best driver of the season by the fans and the team bosses. In a season that could have easily been a McLaren show, he brought colour and excitement. Winning is great, but deep down we all want to see great racing, and Verstappen has done that. This makes it easy to get to a state of acceptance that you can't win them all. I would really appreciate it if you accepted my subscribe invitation. Take care now. Doei doei.